Hello and welcome to the Forestry Briefing. I'm Forestry Journal Editor John McNee. I'm joined by Deputy Editor Jack Hawke.
Hey John, how's it going?
It's going very well. A warm welcome to everyone watching us on YouTube and elsewhere, and to everyone listening on the podcast version. We are recording today on the outskirts of Belfast, where we're at the M Large Open Day. You can look forward to much more coverage of that and an upcoming issue of the magazine, as well as on our social media channels, etc. And our sponsor today is the APF 2024 exhibition. The APF exhibition is the UK's largest forestry, woodland, arboricultural, firewood, fencing, trees and timber trade show, and it's going to be held from the 19th to the 21st of September at Ragley Estate in Warwickshire, and we're really looking forward to it, aren't we, Jack? There's a lot to look forward to.
There is, and I think obviously people know APF last took place in 2022. A lot's happened since then, a lot of innovation has happened since then, a lot of changes in the industry since then, and I think it's a great place and a great time to see all that and see. Yeah, just we love APF, we love to see the machines in real life, we love to see them in action.
Yeah, we're looking forward to around 300 exhibitors and about £80 million of working machinery to see. But not only that, there's quite I think it's going to be the biggest events programme that they've had, events and competitions, with some stuff that we haven't had a chance to see. Some people who've been to the APF maybe in decades past might have seen before, but there's some stuff making some interesting debuts and returns this year.
There is, and I think obviously the APF, as people know, it's such a big forestry show, but I think it's fair to say in recent years people have had sign of concerns, maybe for want of a better word, that it's kind of gone away from that. But I think this year it's going some way to getting back to the big forestry. So you mentioned one thing people will know from the APF, but they might not have seen for a long time, is the driving, the forwarder driving championships. Right. Make sure I get that title correct. That's returning, and that's so exciting. That's returning as a result of a partnership between Coombs Forestry and Richard Court Forestry Engineering.
Yep.
Long story short, it's basically just a way to find out who the best operator is in the UK at driving a forwarder. Anyone taking part is going to get to do so in a John Deere 1110G, which was kindly provided by Coombs Forestry. So, I mean, it's hugely exciting. It's getting to see big working machinery, but not just that, it's getting to see, your everyday operator putting themselves to the test, basically, and seeing who's the best.
Yep, and there'll be the stuff that we've come to know and love already, like the pole climbing competition at the Husqvarna Arena, which is always entertaining. The European Chainsaw Carving Championships, the British Fencing Championship, and the APF Tree Climbing Championships. I mean, an awful lot to see, an awful lot for us to cover. The UK Lumberjacks as well.
Exactly. And you're quite aptly dressed if that's your intention. But yeah, I think it's such an exciting event, and kind of going back to that big forestry and going back to that kind of the sort of the big boys of forestry now. Ponce's not going to be there this year, for example, so they will be a miss. But making up for that to some extent is the return of Komatsu Forest. That's exciting, that's great. I mean, Komatsu's had such a big few years in the UK. They obviously opened their new warehouse in the outskirts of Carlisle. We recently saw the arrival of the first 931XC, their 8-wheeled harvester. So it's been such an exciting time for Komatsu. In terms of what their offering is going to be, I suppose we don't know yet for sure. They're kind of remaining very tight-lipped in that, in terms of what they're actually going to have on their stand. But it's Komatsu. You know what to expect. You're going to expect forwarders, you're going to expect harvesters. It's going to be, just great to see all that machinery there.
Yeah, on the subject of machinery and what we can expect to see from exhibitors, as the official media partner of the APF exhibition, Forestry Journal, we have had a bit of a sneak preview of what many are bringing along, and we've got some highlights which we're keen to share. I think you've noted a few down that you're excited about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of nowhere to start sometimes with all these things, but I think one machine that's going to get people excited, and it's actually coming as a result of sort of demand in the UK, and that is Pharma's first ever forwarder, the LF8. Now, readers and viewers will remember we were lucky enough to be invited to the official launch event of the LF8 last year in Estonia.
Yeah.
It's got a really fascinating story. LF stands for Leaf Force. He's the founder of Force MW, I guess Pharma's parent company, for want of a better explanation. He unfortunately died a few years ago as a result of cancer. And this is basically a tribute to him. He had this idea shortly before he died. He had this idea, never quite came to fruition in his lifetime. But his daughter Ulrika and the various people that run Pharma and Force now, they've picked it up essentially. And they have a lot of really interesting people involved. A lot of people that have a sort of good background in forestry and forwarding. For various companies across Europe. So yeah, I mean, when we were there last year, and certainly the reaction to that, the LFA is generated a lot of excitement. People know Pharma, they know
People
the
know
brand.
Pharma for the trailers and the cranes, and the LF8 is definitely one to check out.
Totally, and the one that's arriving has been doing a lot of work in Sweden, I believe, and they weren't sure whether to bring it across or not. But I think what swayed them is just the sheer demand already from people in the UK now. It's due to kind of go into the market. The first customers will get it probably early next year. So this is a really good chance to, if you're swithering about it, if you're just curious to see what it's like, if you're curious just to get a feel for it, and we kind of touched it, I suppose, when we were there over in Estonia, and it is a good machine. It feels like a quality machine, and I think getting that opportunity to see it, that's something which is definitely going to be a highlight of the show.
Another highlight, we will be seeing some chainsaws from the likes of Husqvarna and others, but what I think many people will be interested to check out is the power ascender from Husqvarna, which was sort of is. I think we got a little look at it when we were at the KWF, but not only can you see the power ascender, you can actually have a go at it.
Yes, I think potentially. I think that might have changed actually in the sorry, breaking news, I guess maybe. This year, I think it might have changed slightly, so let's maybe not promise a go at it.
Okay.
But certainly it's going to be there, and there's going to be a VR system as well from Husqvarna.
Yeah.
So that's definitely 100% going to be there. But you're right, we saw the power ascender when we were in Germany at the KWF, and it was generating a lot of attention. And I don't know, maybe this points to a trend in the industry of people wanting different ways, safer ways to get up trees. So I think we're going to. So I think that's going to be great. And I guess it shows the breadth of what's going to be there, the kind of the difference, because there's a forwarder, an 8.5 ton forwarder. That's big chunky machine that has a very set purpose compared to this, which is maybe more the arb side of things, but it certainly is a relevant factor for a lot of people.
And I'll certainly be asking if I can get a go, even if no one else is allowed.
Yeah. Listen, maybe it's going to be there. I just don't want to promise that in case I think that has changed slightly in the last few weeks. But yeah, if it is there, have a go, because I really would like to see you in it and see how you get on up that tree.
What else are we looking forward to, Jack?
Well, it's a big year for Forestry Journal, and when we get to this at the end, it's a huge year for Forestry Journal, it being our 30th year. But it's also a big year for a lot of companies now. Chief among them is JASP Wilson, who are celebrating their 60th anniversary. You and I were quite lucky to get down to the warehouse recently, I don't know, maybe a few months ago, to kind of cover that story and to speak to the people behind JASP Wilson and to look to the future. But they're going to be marking it in style. I think they've said it's going to be their biggest show ever at the APF. But probably one highlight, one machine which people may have seen if they were at the ARB show, we certainly saw it there, is the Mantis, and you maybe know a bit more about that.
The Mantis, the tree pruning attachment for excavators, which is quite innovative in the way that it can handle and work a tree and dismantle it. And I think it is one that you really need to see for yourself to really understand exactly how it works and what it's capable of.
Totally. I think they've said that themselves. Has been sort of response on social media has been broadly positive, but I think there's some people being like, oh, why? What's the point of this? Why? What difference is this going to make? But when you see it, and we spoke to Billy Wilson, and you might remember his chat. He kind of explained the thinking behind the mantis a little bit.
Yes. Well, it was inspired by his own experience, friends, people in the industry, sort of suffering from injuries. Going up trees and tackling tree felling that way, but and thought there must be a safer way of doing things and an easier way, and this was his answer with it, which is something that's much more than just a tree shear. It's a really manoeuvrable piece of kit. And so like I say, but it's difficult to describe.
Totally,
I think
totally.
it is better to see it for yourself.
Totally, and I think then that just points to, there is obviously always a discussion about shows and how worthwhile they might be for some dealers and manufacturers. That totally is a valid discussion to have. But I think when it's something like this and it's a product that is unique, this is the best thing to do. Not everyone can get to Dalbeattie, for example, to see it. And you saw that at the out, and the bit of noise behind us, so that's obviously proving that we're at a live site.
Why people come to this,
Yes, exactly, because you can see machinery, you can actually get a feel for it. We've got a few BMF trailers behind us. You can touch them, you can get a feel, you can see all the kind of nooks and crannies and all these sorts of things. And the mantis is a perfect example. I'm not too sure if it's going to be working. I imagine it will be working to some extent, but certainly getting the chance to see it is not to be missed.
Yeah, that's not all they'll have. There's some other things that are going to be worth checking out on the Jas P. Wilson stand, some things that they've been working on, so I'll be looking forward to checking that out. What else?
Well, I think this is another thing that you and I have been very lucky to see this year, and again, it's kind of maybe not one of the big boys, but certainly one of the trends in forestry, and that is the 850 Combi from Alcester. Now, it's a mini forwarder. Unfortunately, the tonnage just kind of escaped me right now as we speak, but it's a mini forwarder that is building on the 840, the previous Ulster generation, better in every way, basically. The oil flows quicker, the actual timber it can get through in a day is quicker than what it was previously. But you and I, anyway, again, we were lucky to see it face to face. You and I saw it working in a Doug fir plantation, thinning a Doug fir plantation in England earlier this year, and it's such an impressive machine, and that's going to be on the home forestry stand. It's going to be definitely one of the working machines at the event. There's going to be a little course set up. I was speaking to Nathan recently from home forestry. There's going to be a little course kind of set up where I think people can have a go. They can actually get behind the controls of this forward and really kind of see what it's all about. And again, yes, you might be lacking maybe some of the bigger boys, I suppose, in forestry, but a big trend you and I have seen so much recently is the demand for small-scale machines, for machines that are kind of dedicated for thinning or certainly have that market in mind. And this is a perfect example of that.
And some amongst all the myriad other things that we're going to be seeing, there are a few brands that people might not be too familiar with. Some people exhibiting on their own for the first time at the show. Yeah, quite a lot that makes it worthwhile for people to get out to see.
Totally. And I think we are really excited. It's a big undertaking for us. It's a big undertaking for everyone, but I think it certainly is worth the time and effort that people will come from it. And we're going to be doing a special briefing at the show during the show, so kind of talking about what's going on, getting a feel for the kind of state of forestry in England and the wider UK, I think, as well during the show. So yeah, it's great. Everyone gets together, everyone gets to see one another, and there are obviously some valid concerns about it, but I think it's so worth the time and so worth the effort.
It certainly is for us, and we try to make it to as many of the big forestry shows as we possibly can. One that we didn't make it to this year that a lot of people have been talking about was FinnMetko, but we have been picking up some of the news that's come out of there. Should we just run through a few of them?
Yeah, I think there's a few highlights. FinnMetko, we went to KWF, as you'll know from watching this and reading the magazine and checking out the YouTube. We went there instead. It's kind of just the way of things. We're here this week and we're at APF next week. So anyway, what you see a lot of the time in FinnMetko is a lot of the Finland-based or certainly Nordic-based companies. That's kind of their big show this year.
Yeah.
There's no Elmia Wood, for example, and Ponce, mentioned a few times already in this podcast, this show, aren't going to be APF, but what they kind of lacking from APF, they've made up for in FinnMetko. So they had a number of product launches, a number of surprise product launches, I suppose, or certainly ones which we didn't really know a lot about until it happened.
Yeah.
Chief among them is a new updated elk and a new and updated Vicent forwarder. So really just kind of building on what's gone before, really kind of tweaks, really kind of taking customer feedback from the many years these have been running. But again, really kind of exciting, really great to see that they're still wanting to improve things as time goes on. And they had a few other products on display, but I think those two are certainly the ones that have got people talking. The new forwarders there, and it just kind of again just points to that things are always happening in forestry. People are always changing, they're always having to adapt, and sometimes that's regulation, sometimes that's scarcity of parts, whatever it may be, but things are always changing. We do a lot of these shows, but every one we go to, there's something new to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can read a lot more about FinnMetko on the Forestry Journal website, where we've been rounding up some of the various announcements to have come out of it. Also on the Forestry Journal website, you may have been, it's possible that you've been reading some of our latest tree pest news that we always have. We seem to have quite a lot in the last few months.
Yeah, and I think you and I kind of debated whether to put this one first, but we thought, let's have a cheery podcast to at least start this week, just based on the fact almost every single month this comes up. But yes, fresh from the discovery that Ips Topographus has a liking for Sitka spruce, in some scenarios, asterisk, but anyway, we'll leave it there. We have had the immediate suspending and pausing of all conifer timber movement between Scotland and Ireland, or from Scotland's pest-free area on the west coast to Ireland. Now this comes after 3 Ips Cambrai beetles were found in a port in Cork. Now,
so this is also known as the large larch bark beetle.
Exactly. I'm glad you.
Which is a terrible name. The large larch bark beetle.
Yeah, goodness. And poor larch. I mean, it's got Vermonum and all these things to deal with. Now it's got this to deal with. But yeah, I'm glad you wrote that down, because there's so many beetles. It's kind of beginning to get hard to remember them. But yeah. So yeah, these beetles had arrived in Ireland from timber that had been moving from Scotland's pest-free area. Now that stretches up the west coast, as many of you will know, and yeah, it's worrying news, because there isn't, this isn't the biggest market for timber exports from Scotland, but it is a market, and it certainly is going to be a lot of worry for that side of the sector, that side of the industry. Yeah,
I mean, we're talking about a beetle that's not on the same scale at all as the spruce bark beetle, as Ips typographus. It doesn't do that amount of damage, but it can certainly cause a lot of problems for the industry when these measures have to be taken. And Ireland doesn't have the beetle problem that even in the UK, well, even in the sort of the British Isles do, and on the mainland, and Europe, certainly not as bad as that. So these measures have to be taken to prevent further incursion from beetles into Ireland, but it does mean a constant interruption, or an annoying interruption in the flow of timber back and forth, which I think is obviously concerning for a lot of people in the industry.
Yeah, and I think you like when we had this recently with the pausing of spruce log exports, which is still in place. I think there is a certain, this kind of gets received, this news, differently, whether it's Scotland or whether it's Ireland. I think Ireland is very proud of the fact it's not got the same pest that we have in mainland Britain right now, and I think part of the issue is, like it is with many of these things, is we don't fully know the source of these beetles. Now, forestry officials in Scotland are still saying it may have just hitchhiked onto the timber. Again, where does it come from? It's going to have to come from somewhere originally, these beetles, but they're saying it may have hitchhiked, whether that was when it was getting moved from Scotland or not, or whether it was beforehand. And I think that's part of the problem, is we don't really know exactly where it's come from. And when the story came out, when it happened, I obviously we've asked a few follow-up questions of forestry officials in Scotland, and I've got my phone here, so I might just kind of read word for word. So bear with me here. It's going to be quite long, quite boring, but the original
in contrast to everything else. In this episode.
Yeah, I know. Apologies. We're trying to keep it light and breezy as much as we can, but yeah. So the original Ips Cambry beetles were found in Scotland in 2022. There were 5 beetles found in various traps. So I kind of originally have asked, these beetles that were found in Cork, are they from a similar find? Where were there breeding populations found in Scotland as a result of this original find in 2022? And these beetles, are they from that find? Mm-hmm. And I'll kind of read very briefly what we got back, but. Yeah. So the 2022 trap catches of Ips Cambry beetles was followed up with extensive surveys which found no breeding population. So as it stands, there's still no breeding population in Scotland. Mm-hmm. This is where it gets a bit more interesting. There were many, this is the current beetles in Cork, there were many different routes those beetles could have entered the PFA, mm-hmm. including being carried on in the wind. So again, blow over basically. Yeah. The trap find in Ireland has not been confirmed as coming from Scotland, although Scotland is a possible source as the timber was moving from Scotland into ports at the time. Okay. So, what does that mean? Does that mean this timber was what does it mean basically?
It's not been identified as the source, but it's likely.
It's a possible, yes, exactly. Beetles could have entered the PFA at any time and through a number of routes. We're trapping and conducting surveillance on an ongoing basis. So, mm-hmm. Bottom line is we just don't really know. Mm-hmm. And this is the difficulty when we're dealing with things. This is why the Irish authorities, I think, have been so quick and so strict in terms of the restrictions they're placing on it. And it's not the first time they place restrictions, as I mentioned, on spruce log exports only. Recently, back at the start of the year, now that's still in place. Again, I'll just check. As a result of this, I just kind of checked, is this still in place? These restrictions, and yes, basically, bottom line is they're still in place, but as it stands, as of early September 2024, Dendroctonus micans, this is the other beetle, the other pest which is affecting things, affecting exports between Scotland and Ireland, it's still not been found in the PFA, the pest-free area. So what we're trying to see here, it's a very complicated scenario. There's a lot of things we don't know. There's a lot of things it would appear that forestry officials in Scotland still don't know in terms of the origin of these pests, how prominent they are, if they're widespread in Scotland, and I think that's why we've seen this action taken. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, we will continue to watch for any further developments, and you can... we'll be back with another forestry briefing later this month from the APF show.
With our first guest as well.
With our first guest, and let's... fingers crossed that we don't have too much more Beatles news to update anyone on. Let's hope that they just keep to themselves for the time being. But as I say, we will be at the APF in a big way. We will also be celebrating Forestry Journal's 30th anniversary, and all this month we have a special subscriptions offer. So you can get an annual digital subscription for £30 for the full year, or you can get, for the same price, £30, you can get a 6-month print and digital subscription to get the best of both worlds. So I highly recommend checking out the further details of this offer, which is for new and existing subscribers, going over to the Forestry Journal website, Forestry Journal/subscriptions, to check that out. And of course, we hope if you're coming to the APF, you'll come by the Forestry Journal tent,
come and see us
and say hello.
Tell us everything we're doing wrong, please, and everything we're doing right.
Everything we're doing right, everything we're doing wrong, and express how much you want to be on the forestry briefing, and we'll maybe sort of work in a cameo or something in that episode. As for now, thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
and do join us next time.